President Trump right now is in the middle between two very different groups, literally and philosophically. I'm talking about where he is in the world right now, in the air, on the way to Singapore. That's where he's scheduled to meet the leader of North Korea, something never even attempted by any other American president. But it's what he's leaving behind that has longtime allies of the U.S. scratching their heads. The G7 summit still winding down in Canada without President Trump. He left this summit early to get in place for this meeting with Kim Jong-un. And the things he said at the summit about trade, about Russia, about relationships, all about that in a moment. But listen to what the president said about his meeting with Kim and how long he needs to figure out whether the North Korean leader is serious.
I think within the first minute, I'll know. How? My touch, my feel. That's what I do. How long will it take to figure out whether or not they're serious? I said maybe in the first minute. You know, the way they say that you know if you're going to like somebody in the first 5 seconds. You ever hear that one? Well, I think that very quickly I'll know whether or not something good is going to happen.
With us now, CNN's Ryan Nobles in Washington, CNN's Paula Newton in Quebec, and senior international correspondent Ivan Watson in Singapore. Ryan, let me start with you. President Trump dropped a few bombshells before he left for Singapore, throwing out this idea of dropping all trade barriers, free trade, changing his tune about his friendship with the other leaders. How are those other leaders responding?
Well, there's actually a bit of news on that front, Anna, because just in the last hour or so, we've learned that the United States has signed on to this joint communique with all of the countries that participated in the G7. And there was some concern that the United States and President Trump specifically would not sign on to that deal. Now, we haven't seen the official readout of that statement, but many of the world leaders have already started to talk about it, and they say that trade and tariffs are included in that statement. So the fact that the United States decided to sign on shows that there was at least some level of agreement with this very contentious meeting. That being said, though, many of these world leaders are stopping short of necessarily declaring a kumbaya moment. This was the statement, this was what Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, had to say during a press conference earlier today. He said, this agreement, which everyone has signed on to, is good news, and it makes a collective desire to stabilize things. Nevertheless, I do not consider that with a declaration all is obtained, and it is obvious that we will have in the coming weeks and the next months to continue to work. So there's obviously still a big divide. So the question is just how well did President Trump get along with these leaders? And he told reporters today their relationships are all great. Take a listen.
The relationship that I've had with the people, the leaders of these countries has been, I would really rate it on a scale of 0 to 10. I would rate it a 10. That doesn't mean I agree with what they're doing, and they know very well that I don't. So we're negotiating very hard tariffs and barriers. As an example, the European Union is brutal to the United States. They don't take, and they understand that. They know it. When I'm telling them, they're smiling at me. You know, it's like the gig is up. It's like the gig is up. They're not trying to, there's nothing they can say. They can't believe they got away with it.
And so, Anna, the point to be made here is that the positive sign after this G7 summit is that all the sides are still talking. What hasn't been revealed, though, is whether or not they've agreed on anything, because it seems as though, at least for now, they all seem to be sticking to their guns in terms of these very important positions that they hold on some of these very big issues that divide them.
So let's get the Canadian response. Paula Newton, you are there in Quebec where this summit has been taking place. The Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just spoke. How did he wrap up this very unusual summit?
Well, he basically wrapped it up, Anna, by saying that the president did not hijack it and that they came to significant agreement. But as Ryan was saying, on trade, while the United States did sign up to that communique, and of course that is a victory of sorts, a lot of it is only in words. Everyone is waiting to see the deeds that are done, and no one is quite sure if there was really any progress at hand. I want you to listen to Justin Trudeau giving as good as he gets from the president.
It would be with regret, but it would be with absolute certainty and firmness that we move forward with retaliatory measures on July 1st, applying equivalent tariffs to the ones that the Americans have unjustly applied to us. I have made it very clear to the President that it is not something we relish doing, but it is something that we absolutely will do, because Canadians, we're polite, we're reasonable, but we also will not be pushed around.
And not being pushed around, Anna, also includes something that is incredibly contentious for the president, and that includes a sunset clause in NAFTA. Now, the president has made it clear not only does he want individual agreements, one with Mexico, one with Canada, but he also wants it to end after 5 years. The prime minister, again, underscoring the fact that it's absolutely non-negotiable, that issue. He will not sign a deal that is a sunset clause. And I'd say we don't really have a heck of a lot of progress there. Having said that, behind the scenes, officials tell me that in having the discussion with President Trump, they are trying to get him to a point where he doesn't blow up the World Trade Organization, all the multilateralism that they have fought so hard for. And you have to say, Anna, that they are now focused on trade. You will be seeing these trade negotiations go on in the next few weeks and months at Mach speed, something that the Trump administration wanted. So that is a victory of sorts.
All right, and as we've been speaking, the president has been tweeting. Let me read a couple of his tweets to you all. I am on my way to Singapore, where we have a chance to achieve a truly wonderful result for North Korea and the world. It will certainly be an exciting day, and I know that Kim Jong-un will work very hard to do something that has rarely been done before: create peace and great prosperity for his land. I look forward to meeting him and have a feeling that this one-time opportunity will not be wasted. Let me go to Singapore now, where the president is headed, and our Ivan Watson is there. So, Ivan, as we've been discussing where he's coming from, there is so much at stake here in this upcoming meeting with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. This is a meeting that has already been canceled once. It is currently back on, but still 2 days away. What are the expectations there as this historic moment gets nearer?
Yeah, well, as President Trump has described it, it's a mission of peace. If it does, in fact, go forward on the 12th of June, as has been planned, it would be a dramatic first, the first ever meeting of a U.S. president and the North Korean leader. President Trump has also made it clear that this is a one-shot deal. There is one chance, he says, for North Korea to come forward to kind of break out and join the international community of nations. But he also mentioned in comments before leaving Canada on his way here to Singapore, he also seemed to change expectations for this upcoming meeting, or lower expectations, rather. Take a listen to this excerpt of his press conference.
Well, I think the minimum would be relationship. You'd start at least a dialogue. Because, you know, as a deal person, I've done very well with deals. What you want to do is start that. Now, I'd like to accomplish more than that. But at a minimum, I do believe at least we'll have met each other. We will have seen each other. Hopefully, we will have liked each other, and we'll start that process.
So this is really interesting, Anna, because the Trump administration's position so far has been to demand the complete, irreversible, verifiable denuclearization of North Korea's nuclear arsenal, one of the weapons of which was tested as recently as autumn of last year. And here, President Trump has suggested, hey, if they just start talking and develop a personal relationship, well, at a minimum, that might be okay. That's a pretty strong signal he's sending. Of course, he wants more. Now, Secretary of State Pompeo has suggested that the U.S. side has to offer North Korea something in exchange, security guarantees, and a pathway for economic prosperity, going on to suggest that if the meeting works out here in Singapore, that possibly China, Japan, South Korea, other countries would want to be a part of whatever economic development could come towards North Korea in the future. But we're a long way away from that right now. We're just trying to see the dynamics of this first potentially historic face-to-face meeting.
It does give us a hint, though, at the vision of what could be. Thank you, Ivan Watson, Paula Newton, Ryan Nobles. I appreciate it.